Being able to write and speak persuasively is not just a skill that will get you a good mark in English, but it's also a really useful skill to have in life. For example, by being persuasive, I was able to ensure my employers to give me a job. I was able to persuade my landlord to allow me to move into my rental property, and I was able to convince my girlfriend that buying a Nintendo Switch was a sound financial investment. So, when we approach this topic, know that you're not just learning how to do an assessment. Some of the stuff you'll learn here will really help you get what you want in life, whether or not that's convincing your parents to buy you an iPhone or something a bit more pragmatic. So, to start off with, let's look at what a persuasive text actually is. So, whether or not it's a speech or a feature article or anything like that, essentially a persuasive text is any type of text whose main purpose is to persuade its audience to agree with your point of view. Before you even begin to craft a persuasive text, the first thing you're going to want to consider is who you are trying to persuade. This is your target audience. You have to know your target audience. If you know who you are trying to persuade, then you'll begin to know how to manipulate them. So start by engaging them, get them interested in whatever you're speaking about, and then appeal to them. Appeal to any facet of their being which you think you can use to your advantage, whether that's something good like a dream or a desire, or even something bad like a fear. What you don't want to do is you don't want to insult them. Quite often I'll read persuasive texts where you're just opposing and insulting the person that you're trying to speak to. This is not effective, and it's a really good way to get your target audience offside from the outset. There's a pretty well-known guy called Aristotle who is quite famous for his theory on how to win an argument, or what's now commonly known as the art of rhetoric, which basically means the art of persuasion. And he said that there are three main elements you need to win an argument. The first was called logos, which means logic. The second is called pathos, which refers basically to emotions. And the last is ethos, which is your sense of credibility. We'll start with credibility because as students, no offense, but you don't have much credibility. So we've got to think about what you can do to actually build some credibility in your responses, in your persuasive texts. You can assume the identity of an expert and use experts to help you with your argument. Much the same as experience. Experience gives you credibility. So that could be as a victim or a witness or someone who's worked in a particular field and has experience in it. The last one is respect and a sense of respect, and you can actually get respect in a lot of ways. One way to get respect is just to be passionate about something, as we see with Greta Thunberg and the climate change debate going on at the moment. Now into the ones that I think every student can definitely use in their responses. The first one is logic, and essentially in a persuasive sense, you use logic to make your target audience think that you are right, to make them think that whatever you're talking about, you are correct. And you can do this in quite a few ways. Mainly you do this through well-reasoned arguments and common sense. But on top of that, you can also have experiments, as well as statistics, facts, and research. These are objective persuasive devices that pretty much convince your target audience that whatever you're saying is true. But even if your audience know that you are correct, if they don't care, then your words are wasted. That's why it's important to have an emotional investment from your audience, achieved through a really emotional argument to get your audience invested in whatever you're discussing, to make them care. And this can be achieved in a few ways. By appealing to their sense of empathy and sympathy, by appealing to things that are really good, like their love for their family, their love for their children, even their love for their country, as well as their hopes and dreams and ambitions. On the flip side, fear and guilt are known as some of the most powerful motivators to man. And just flipping on the news on any given night is really good evidence of that. Okay, now I'm really quickly going to go through an effective way of structuring a persuasive text. As you get more confident with your writing, feel free to play around with the formulas and structures that are most effective for you, but as a starting point, I think this is a really good basic yet effective structure. So open by grabbing your audience's attention. 3 ways you can do this is with an anecdote, which is a little story relevant to whatever you're discussing, a hypothetical scenario, or a rhetorical question. Then transition that attention-grabbing opening into your proposition statement, which is your entire argument summed up in one clear sentence. After reading your proposition statement, a marker and your target audience should be absolutely clear on what your argument is. In the body of your persuasive text, this is where you set up your major arguments. Now, one way I like to do this is to have 3 or 4 main reasons you're correct, and then just to provide evidence and explanations for those reasons in each paragraph using 2 or 3 persuasive techniques in each paragraph. So by the time you're done, you'll have your opening, your proposition statement, and then at least 3 points that explain why you're correct. A very logical and effective way of doing this is to set up your argument with logic and then to really bring it home with an emotional investment from your reader. So maybe your first 2 or 3 reasons could be very logical reasons, and then your next reason or your final 2 reasons could really get that emotional investment that you want. From there, you have to write a conclusion. And in persuasive writing and persuasive speaking, this is what's known as a call to action. And the definition of a call to action is right there in its name. You are calling your reader or your listener to take action. So offer an alternative or a solution to the problem. Tell your audience what they can do from this point on and bring a bit of optimism. If you don't offer any solutions or any alternatives, you're just whinging, and nobody likes a whinger. Actually bring something to the table and tell your listener what they can do. Thank you for listening. I hope this helped, and good luck crafting your own persuasive texts.